Next. This is for Leif. Well, I guess it is for Leif. I heard you say it is important to think. I heard Jocko say this too. How do you think? Meaning, how do you talk to yourself? Do you ask yourself questions? Do you think by talking to others? What do you believe is the most valuable method for becoming a clear thinker and communicator?
That's a deep question.
I actually think it's pretty easy to answer.
It is easy to answer, I think.
I can answer it in one word.
Go.
Detach. That's how I think. You can't. You got to step out. You got to step back mentally. You got to step back, look at what's going on, and think. And that's where you can think about it. That's where you can figure out what's going on. If you can do that, you're there. If you can't do it, you don't even know you're not doing it. That's the problem. When you're not detached, you don't even know you're not detached. You're in the storm and you don't even know it.
That's
something to watch out for.
That's exactly right. But I think, for people that maybe don't fully understand what that means, right? This idea of detachment, which you've obviously talked a lot about on here, and which is such a key thing for decision making. It's I think the key thing there is to make sure that you're not clouded by this emotional attachment to plans, which we often talked about with our leaders in the SEAL team. So I'm emotionally invested in a plan that I came up with. I spent hours or days or weeks or months, involved in, and I want that to succeed, of course. But is that, I got to have that realistic assessment. And that's what the detachment really requires, is that you pull yourself not just physically away, out of the weeds, or to say, okay, let me think about this in the strategic picture, but you take away that emotional investment that you have to maybe, even whether it's a plan, sometimes it's a team member as well. And if you have, someone that you just have a close relationship with, that whether they're a relative of yours or you had a long-standing relationship with, and that maybe you've gotten too close to them and you can't see that they become more important than the mission, and they're dragging the rest of the team down, and you're not making the call, either tighten them up or let them go, if that's the right case. So I think what that really requires is, you got to emotionally pull back. It's a mental thing to really have a brutally honest assessment of the situation that's independent from any kind of previous bias that you might have had.
That's interesting there, because even if like, oh yeah, I'm gonna detach.
Oh, it's not that easy.
Yeah, like you can't just go through the motions.
No.
You can't be like, hey, I'm gonna detach. I'm detached right now. Meanwhile, you're just, like you said, clouded by the emotional part that you're like kind of 1 foot in emotionally. So you're technically not detached, so it doesn't work.
You know what else is a good way to think? Is to listen. You listen to what people are saying. I've been thinking about Hal Moore, how he said, if you listen, you know twice as much. You know everything that you know, and you know everything that the other guy knows. Yeah. That's a great thing. But if you're sitting in a conversation, I mean, from a business perspective, if you're in a meeting and there's a conversation going on, if you're in the conversation, you're talking, you're adding your piece, well, then you're not detached. You're in it. But if you sit back and you listen and you hear what's going on, you can assemble, thoughts better. Yeah. So, all right. Next, when can we expect any books to come out by either of you? And what are they going to be like? Extreme Ownership or Way of the Warrior Kid? So I also had a book out called Discipline Equals Freedom. It's a field manual, by the way.
Sure. You
familiar with field manual, Echo? You claim to be familiar with field manuals.
My favorite kind of manual, yeah.
Okay. Sure. Way of the Warrior Kid 2 is coming out in April. It's called Mark's Mission. And we are in the process of writing. Leif Babin, tell me about that.
Yes, we are. We're getting after a second book right now. It's a follow-on book to Extreme Ownership. And I'm super excited about it. It's going to be in the same format where we talk about combat lessons learned on the battlefield or in training, and then a principle, and then its application in the business world in the same format as Extreme Ownership. And what it really is it's to answer all of the questions and difficulties that people have from applying the principles. We get these common questions all the time of like, okay, I'm having this issue, and okay, you said take ownership here, but what does that really mean, or how do I apply a cover and move, to my team? It's going to dive much deeper into that, and it's going to be awesome. Going to be coming out fall of 2018.
How do you feel about writing a sequel?
It's not a sequel. It's going to be a standalone book on its own. It's going to be good.
Okay, I think it's nerve-wracking. Because you know what? Have you ever seen the movie Jaws?
Yes.
It's one of my favorite movies. Sure. Have you ever seen the movie Jaws 2?
Yes.
We got issues with Jaws 2. We got issues.
Yeah.
And this is what I think. So I think, again, I'll call it luck. Maybe not, but I call it luck. Luckily for us, this book has sold really well. That, if we would have written a sequel a year after this book came out, it would have been Jaws 2, to be honest with you. But luckily, because now it's been 2 years since this came out. So we've had, and by the way, a follow-up year, if we would have released a book, if the publisher's going, release another book, we'll pay you more money. That's what they do. They want you to release another book now. We got some hype from this book. We'll get another one out there. And Leif and I were like, well, no, not right now. Just stop. And we'll let time. Write another book. Well, I did write another book, but they're not the same, right? We don't want to make Jaws 2. So we let time go. And guess what we're doing all the time that we had passed, right? We weren't sitting around. No, we were working with more companies. We were working with more military units. We were working with police. We were working with firefighters. We were having the muster. We were learning more and more lessons. And we were getting feedback from this book and saying, okay, I see some threads. And at first it was one little thread and it was another little thread. And now all of a sudden all those threads come together and you get something, you get a fabric. And that's what we waited for. Is let's get something that is a woven fabric that's going to be strong like Kevlar. So the next book that we got coming out, I disagree with you that it's a standalone book. I don't think it's a standalone book. Are you going to retract your statement? I'm going to give you a chance. You should.
I do retract my statement.
Because it is, I mean, the new book.
I thought you were setting me up for an ambush there.
No.
You're just dangling out there?
No. I'm sure you could read the new book on its own. But you shouldn't. You should read Extreme Ownership first, and then you read the new book. And when you read the new book, it's going to, again, all those threads are going to weave together, and they're going to be the perfect. It's going to be they're going to complement each other in an amazing way.
I think that's in that method, or from that perspective, absolutely. I think absolutely it is a sequel in that perspective. It will be written in a way that you can read it as a standalone book for sure. It will certainly reference the things that we talked about in Extreme Ownership and the foundational principles upon which that's written. I think there are a few exceptions though to your Jaws analogy. And,
a lot actually.
Yeah, I mean, I can think that Indiana Jones, and the Temple of Doom.
Yeah, Terminator.
Yeah, Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
But it does have a lot to do with how you said, hey, let's wait a little bit.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
You can't just start, unless it's the whole story that you on purpose are going to do.
That's the difference, because if you just, we had a hit movie, make another one now.
Yes.
Jaws 2.
Yeah.
That's a good title.
Yeah.
Jaws was a hit. Let's make another one. We'll call it Jaws 2.
Yeah. But if they would have waited, like Terminator, they waited 8 years or so. Then it's like, okay, a lot of things are updated, a lot of new stuff they figured out. Just like how you were saying, that boom, Terminator 2, just as good.
Aliens.
Well,
Aliens
I don't know.
crushed
Aliens
the first movie.
Was that pretty quick afterwards, though?
The second movie, Aliens, crushed the first movie.
Really? So I'll to be totally honest with you.
It's a gamble, though.
No, I don't know, because I'm halfway, a little bit more than halfway done with my writing part, right? Before we start editing each other. I think we might have a sequel that's better. I don't know. I have a suspicion that the sequel's better. Possibly better.
So. I think so too. It's super fun to write, as we're doing it. And I think, as you said, our knowledge is so much more now. I mean, our knowledge of the business world was we'd been working for a couple, 2 or 3 years in the business world at that point. But now we've got more than double that, and the reach and expansion of what we've been doing since the release of Extreme Ownership it's 100x what we were doing, previously. So that's just given us. It's been a massive education and. Our knowledge of how to apply these things across the spectrum, is incredibly so much deeper than it was previously, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Next question is, how long does it take to prepare for a muster? And when we read this question earlier, I thought it was the person asking how long it would take this individual, me or whoever, a person out in the world, to get ready to go to the muster.
Oh, yeah.
And the answer to that is it doesn't take you any time. You should read Extreme Ownership for sure, but there's no like big physical. There's physical things that you do at the muster, but they're scaled that anybody can do them. So it's really, you don't need to do any major preparation other than put your ego in check.
I think the biggest preparation you need is to look at yourself in the mirror and write down where you're weakest and where you need to work. I mean, that's what we want to talk. I don't care where you're doing great. We're not there to pat you on the back. We want to care like where you can get better, and everyone can get better. Certainly you can improve all the time, and I think that's what you need to do. I had thought this question was about how we prep for the muster, which is substantial.
It's always about him.
Which is substantial.
Always about Leif.
Yeah, this guy. Come on,
All
bro.
about me all the time.
Yeah, it is a ton of work to prepare for the muster, but
Which is, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's great. We enjoy it.